All right. Well, thank you all for being here this morning. I think we're all morning, or early afternoon, depending. Well, no, Margarita, you're not morning.
No.
Be a little bit later on that one. Uh,
5:30.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, good evening, Margarita.
Hello.
So we have the agenda for today is fairly, I'll say short, but sometimes the way we talk, it goes on a little bit longer than you think it might. I did send it in the email, but I flushed it out for myself a little bit more. And one of the things, two of the topics that have been coming up a lot lately with our facilitators and our facilitators in training are forums. So a professional forum so that we can connect with each other professionally, asking questions about topics or information or specific curricular engagements for different populations or anything like that. And the other one is how do we connect with each other socially, or in a situation where you just want to share, you had a great experience with something CIT related, and you're like, somebody has to appreciate this, and somebody in our group will appreciate it. But how do we connect with each other? So unless you have somebody's email or cell phone that you can send them a message or text, it's a little bit more difficult. And so those are two of the things that we wanted to talk about as far as being able to connect with each other and being able to have a professional forum to discuss things, issues, questions. And then the second part of that, the agenda, would be how do we get out and get involved in the community and be ready to facilitate with a group? Where are the foundational concept videos? Where's this CIT, Taste of CIT overview that you've heard us talk about? What are some different types of course offerings that we might be able to use depending on the community? So those are the things that we've got on the agenda for today. And I don't know if you want me to just get started with some of the things that I had an opportunity to brainstorm with two other facilitators in training, or if you wanted to open it up for conversation. Shh, don't everybody talk at once.
Go for it. Go for it.
All right. So the first thing is under the facilitator forums. So I'm not sure if you all are aware that on the CIT website, we have a space for facilitator forums. So this would be a possible professional opportunity to connect. So if you're familiar with, and I'm going to lose my...
Do you want me to share it?
I was going to say, if you would please, and I don't lose my agenda.
Yeah.
So Michael's going to pull up the CIT website. And on the CIT website, we have a section for facilitator forums under the facilitator login information. And once you've logged in, you go to forums, and you'll see that what comes up is a different section or a different area for every one of our skills and concepts. So we've got something for general questions, foundations, and then of course for skills 1 through 10. Now, some of the questions, and because Michael's sharing his screen, I lost my agenda anyway, but that's okay. I'm going to pull it up. Just go to a different screen. One of the things that came up in a conversation with some of the facilitators in training that I was having a talk with is, can we kind of make that a little bit more user-friendly or consolidate that? So if somebody puts a question in the general forum, does that go to everybody? Can you sign up for alerts? Can you get alerts to only certain things? So if you only want alerts to one particular skill, can you only get those? Is it searchable by a topic? Can we just have a general forum that you can ask questions versus having one for each of the different skills? And can you then create threads? So these are all questions that I've asked our web guru. His name is Matthew, and he's pretty amazing. So I've asked, or I have the email drafted to Matthew with all of these different questions. But before I hit send, I wanted to see if there were any other questions that I needed to get from Matthew or from you all that we can ask Matthew that there would be answers to that I can then share. Because getting answers to questions in a timely fashion is critical. So if you put a question in on the forum and nobody gets back to you for a week, well, that's on us, and that's not a good thing. So we want to make sure that whatever it is we're doing it in a manner that is beneficial to the facilitators in training who are asking the question.
I have one question.
Yes.
So I was wondering about the idea of having an app. Is that
Okay.
I mean,
coming?
in terms of developing in like a iOS app or something like that. Yeah, as a matter of fact, it's something that I explored with Matthew a while ago, because I thought that probably the easiest thing to do would be able to, because we use the back end of our website is WordPress. So I've looked for an iOS kind of compatible development tool that would connect to WordPress. And at the time, he was worried about maintenance issues, just having to maintain that as well as this and the rest of the sites at Life University. So, but that is something I want to revisit, because I am very adamant that at some point we need to have an app, so that not just for communicating amongst ourselves, but for people to have the practices handy and be able to get reminders of the different skills and things like that. So that's in the works. It's just not quite there yet.
Great question. Thank you, Anita.
Mm-hmm.
Other thoughts, comments, questions, anything that I need to add to my question list for Matthew? Is this something as a facilitator or a facilitator in training you would use? And what might you use it for?
Yes, Jennifer, I would use it for just colleague references on their experiences, how they did it, what they thought worked or didn't work, just for, yeah, peer review.
Okay. Thank you, Nancy.
Hi, sorry. Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Mike. Hi, all. I'm sorry to be late. I think the idea of an app would be great, just also to use the podcast or the practices while not having access to the website. And it's much easier with an app, I suppose.
Okay.
Yeah, we already have so much content that we could put there. It'd be pretty easy, I think. So I'm going to revisit that with Matthew.
Great.
And I think the key to this, these forums is going to be notifications. As you mentioned, Jennifer, is that if people don't, even we don't, as you can see, no one's using it really. A couple people have posted, but it took us probably a month before we realized that anyone had posted anything to it, because there's no notification set. So I think if we, for the people who want to be active in it, if there's notifications set so that they know when something changes or when something's posted and they can go back and check it out, then I think we can have a core group of people that would be active in it and populating it and working it. But if it's out of sight, it'll be out of mind. So I think making sure we have that notification system set up would be great.
I've got a question, and I'm sorry I was a little bit late too. This is Charlie Worker in Dallas, Texas. We talked about reorganizing the facilitator, not the facilitator so much as the user manual, in a way that had everything in terms of the received knowledge, the exercises, all in one place, so that when we do a class, let's say the first one, calming the body and the mind, that we've got everything right there for them, as well as the ability to, I guess, take the facilitator's guide and somehow integrate that in a way that we've got it all there together without having to, pull out and redesign and re-put it together where it's user-friendly for the facilitator as well as the student, actually. So just, wondering where you are with that.
So we're going to put that in the parking lot. It's a great question. And after Jennifer's done with her agenda, I'll address that. So that's
Okay,
a great question.
great. Thanks. Sorry if I something.
No, you're fine.
Oh, you're
Okay.
good. Questions are always good and welcome, Charlie. Okay, so then the other part of connecting with facilitators, is there a desire for, or would there be a use for, a more social forum? So I am not a social media person. My friends know this about me. If you want me, an email is probably the best thing, or pick up the phone and call me. Text and social media, not my thing. I'm getting better, but that certainly isn't my area of expertise or strength. So is there a use, or would there be a use for a more social area? And that would be something like I shared earlier. I had a great progress, not perfection. And I did this really awesome CIT thing. And I think Lauren would totally appreciate this because Lauren and I have had this conversation before and I'm totally going to share it. And I don't get on it very often, but I am a part of a Facebook group called Student Affairs Moms. So it's all a group of women who work in student affairs because there's nothing like working in student affairs and being a mom and trying to figure out your life. And so that's a group of women who connect with each other, can share support, resources, information, references, and it's wonderful. And it's people from all over the country. I don't know if there's anybody outside the US in that group, but it's been a wonderful resource and support when I do actually get there and I'm able to look at information. So is there something like that, either a Facebook group or another kind of social media group that would be user-friendly and beneficial to all of the facilitators in training that we would share? And again, is it something that would be used? And are there folks who would be willing to kind of monitor and help see what's in there?
Jennifer, what would be the difference between the facilitator forum and something more social? Like, for instance, what comes into my mind is I would be interested in saying, after I did this one training, one meeting, I'm thinking, well, nobody's going to sign up for 10-week course. I know that. I'm sure of that. But what is anyone else doing? So I'm thinking of, yes, we have the taste of, how did that go? But what if you wanted to customize it? This type of conversation is both professional, but it is social as well. So what is the need for another other thing, or can it all be accomplished within the forum?
Well, that's a great question, Nancy. I don't know. So that's where I'm asking for feedback, because the questions and the feedback I've been getting are for almost two separate areas. Because that would be a question that, yes, absolutely, I would put that in the facilitator forums as the professional side of it, versus the more, hey, I'm looking for some advice, hey, I've got a challenge, of the more personal side of CIT.
Wouldn't that be part of a facilitator's inquiry as well? My reasoning is there are so many things you have to get on and look at. The more you water it down, the more you separate it, the more diverse it becomes. I think it can actually lose the essence of what you're trying to do. I know if I look at different Facebook group pages, and I mean, it takes all day to do this stuff. I'd rather be in one place, talk to one thing, talk to one facilitator forum of this particular set, and that's what my preference would be.
Okay.
I think one of the things that we had talked about, and I guess the information that comes back from Matt or Matthew will do that, is what are the restrictions of the facilitator forum? So for example, the Facebook groups are searchable, and there's a few other things that those allow, where I think when we had our conversation about the forum, Jennifer, we weren't sure what the capabilities were. So right now it's set up in like skill based, but so many of the things that we talk about go across skills. So it's sort of like, how do you know where to put it? How do you know where to search for something? And then, again, the notifications, where with Facebook, you can set it up, in lots of different ways. We weren't sure how the forums, if it's every time someone does it, if it's a daily log, if it's a weekly log. And, again, if people can't access it at that moment, then it sort of loses it, where Facebook, you can access it, wherever and whenever you want to.
That's a good point.
I mean, one thing we could think about doing is just, the original idea behind the forums, the way they're laid out now, was that there would be more kind of a lot of questions coming about each of the different skills, and more ongoing dialogue about each of the different skills. And it was more of a long-term vision. It may be that the better thing to do would be to start off the bat with just a Facebook group that would be limited to facilitators and facilitators in training, and then it could just be general. And then, as I don't do a lot of Facebook group stuff, so I don't really know, but if Lauren, if you're saying it's searchable and somebody can go in there and search for all the skill, like skill 5 and see anything that's related to skill 5, if that's what they happen to have a question about, or we could do something, like that. And then it would just be one place. And I think you'll get more critical mass that way. Cause I think, as Nancy was saying, if there's one more place I have to log into and check, then I'm less likely to do it. Monica's talking about GroupMe, which I'm not that familiar with.
Yeah, Facebook, the groups are searchable, and you can also attach files there, for different media. And so I don't know what's involved with the forum in the web development, and if that's like a 3-6 month sort of lead time. But to me, you could get a Facebook group up and running tomorrow, and we could go through all the trials and tribulations there, and then see what needs to be brought over to the forum. It's an easy way to just sort of test it and get the community going, in my opinion.
Okay.
I think it's a good idea to do that as well, if you can. I think as, we are in a social media world right now.
To my dismay, Anita.
And as you start to bring in some of the, yeah, I think some type of a Facebook group would be, at least you can test it.
And not a bad idea. I'm not a Facebook person in big time, but I do use it occasionally. So notifications, if we use that as a platform for social communication, I think notifications would be real important for me, because if I don't get notified about something that has to do with this, I may see it 2 weeks from now, which will be OBE by then. So probably a good idea.
All right, I'm sorry, I'm making myself some notes, so.
Okay, so we'll Jennifer and Rebecca and I can powwow afterwards, but it sounds like maybe what we'll do is look at trying to set up the Facebook group as a way to just stick our toe in the water and test it out and see what happens, and see if we can get a critical mass of people participating. That would be great.
Okay.
The only thing about Facebook, sorry, thing about Facebook, I totally agree with Lauren that we will speed things up and so on. It's more social, easy, but information gets lost. Then after a certain time, it gets lost. We don't access so much about whatever it was said 1 month ago. So it's the only thing I see. So, but yeah, it's can see it also with a more social and easy way of connecting. Thank you.
Thanks for offering that, Margarita. I have concerns about Facebook's privacy issues myself.
Oh yeah.
And if I may add something, I'm completely ignorant, to be honest, if it comes to Facebook. I'm not a social media person either. I'm not even a member, so would it be possible to take part? I suppose I have to sign in and become a member of Facebook in order to take part. So I have to rethink becoming a part of the critical mass, I think.
Yeah, and privacy, forget about that also.
Mm.
It may be for a particular.
You can sign on with an alias name if you don't want your real name to be out there.
Oh, that's great advice.
That's the point.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're suspect.
Who else was going to say something? Was it Margarita or Anita?
It's a test bed. I think you're going to get a different array of people that might click to it and want to use it and utilize it. Just as a mechanism of communicating with each other and sharing, and then there'll be those that won't. So I wouldn't say that it's a place to put all your critical information. It's really maybe a place to explore and to see whether or not people are connecting with each other. And I think as you get deeper into the next generation, or a different generation of people that are utilizing it, that maybe it'll be just another place for us to communicate and develop what we're doing.
I would still like to see that it's on our own site as well, that we don't have to do that if we don't want to.
But I think, Anita, this is a critical point, or a very important point as well, the target groups we are aiming at, because eventually younger people, I think, don't join Facebook anymore. So perhaps there's even a different way. Are we on Twitter? Sorry, Michael.
No.
But perhaps there are even different channels we would be more efficient, or as I said, I'm quite ignorant if it comes to social media, but I want to get to know more about it. So I'm open to learning.
Okay, well, this is good feedback. We're going to take this in and powwow and see what the different options are. I think we're looking for a combination of a platform that is easily accessible and we can get critical mass, because on one hand we could, which is I think kind of what we were looking at with the forums, which is like design something, even though it didn't end up this way, but trying to design something that's just for our purposes and just perfect for what we want, but then nobody uses it because it's on one other place people have to log into or find or get notifications about. And so then that has a problem on that side. On the other side, there are all the issues that we have to deal with in terms of privacy and all of those things. And so we'll have to try to thread that needle and come up with something. But I do think something, at least in the near term, that will enable us to communicate. Because one of the things is these calls have been really great, but as you can see, because of time zones and work schedules and all that kind of stuff, a very small percentage of people who are in the program can participate. And so having that asynchronous mode of communication, I think, will be really helpful. So I'm sure whatever we come up with will have people who don't love the option, but hopefully it'll be enough that we can move forward on it and then see what our longer term needs are going to be. Which is another thing which we can maybe talk about next month, which is we'd also love to come up with something similar for participants, so that we have probably close to 1,000 people around the world who have participated in courses, if not more. And so having a place for them to plug in, I think, will be really powerful, because I think people will not only connect with people of like mind, but also it will give them a sense of motivation and accountability to maintaining the practices. So that'll be step 2.
Sorry, I'm writing myself notes. I've got notes in multiple places. Although I did find it interesting, somebody that's registered for the course that we're starting next week is from New Jersey. And so she sent me a note and she's like, so I see that you're in New Jersey. I don't want to ask personal questions, but where are you in New Jersey? Of course, as it always would be, right? She is at the far northern end of New Jersey and I am at the far southern end of New Jersey. So to meet in the middle, it's probably a little over an hour for each of us, but we're trying to figure out how to do that this summer, to meet, and have this kind of conversation in, person, face to face. So that's kind of cool. And then the next question, or the question that we've been getting a lot of lately, is how to go out and get involved to facilitate in the community. And so I wanted to share some information about that. And of course, I don't want to put him on the spot, but I know that Charlie has facilitated a group, so I'll ask for his thoughts in a few minutes. But I just wanted to throw out there, so we have something that has been kind of labeled Taste of CIT. So we have a PowerPoint on the facilitator area that's called CIT Overview. So if you have an opportunity to go out and talk to a group and you want to share information in a quote unquote formal setting, you can use the CIT Overview PowerPoint. There's some really helpful information in there. And then what other groups have done, who Compassionate Atlanta has done it on more than one occasion, a taste of. And so they'll do the overview and they'll talk about the foundational concepts and they'll do a little bit of the generic information, but then they'll also give one or two pieces of information about the skill. Typically they'll start with skill 1 just because there's some really great information from skill 1 that they can then translate to moving forward. So I also share with folks that there's I don't want to say it's an agenda, but I always share an outline of things that you might want to do if you're interested in doing CIT in the community as like a taste of. The foundational concept videos, because somebody said, well, I see the PowerPoint, but I'm looking for a video to share. The foundational concept videos are really helpful. Those are great resources. Probably foundational concept video 1 would be the most helpful for individuals if you're wanting to share general information about CIT. So if you haven't had a chance to go through those recently, that might be something helpful for you to reacquaint yourself with the foundational videos so that you can know which video or where you'd want to point them. Like, hey, go to this video and start at, 2 minutes and 13 seconds and go to 5:15, and that's the heart of CIT or something like that, or whatever it is you're trying to convey to your group. It's a really great resource and source of information for folks that might want to share something with outside groups. So the other one is, so if you're offering a course, where do you get manuals? What format do you have to follow? So the manuals are available on the website. You can purchase them, and to purchase one is somewhat cost prohibitive because we sell them at cost, but then shipping and handling from the vendor is a little bit more. So if you're facilitating a course, always try to buy in bulk because the price comes down then as far as the shipping and handling when you're working with a group like that in a larger group. And then what are the options for course offerings? So that's been a question I've had a lot of lately. And so we have 4 different options that either have been used or are being piloted. The first option, of course, is the way that many of you, not all, but many of you took the course, the initial CIT course, which was in a 10-week format, 2 hours a week for 10 weeks. You practice during the week between your, skill 1 and then skill 2, and you have that time in between to process and really kind of take in that information and practice it, for lack of a better word. That would be the first option. The second option, which some of you have participated in, maybe not the most compassionate option for you, is a 3-day intensive. So we cover all 10 skills in 3 days, and you get bombarded with all sorts of information and don't really have a chance to process and practice between skill 1, skill 2, skill 3, all the way up to 10. So by the time you get to 7, 8, 9, 10, you're just kind of like, whew, drinking from a fire hydrant, and it's a little overwhelming. And so it sometimes takes a little bit of time to process that after you've completed your course. So I'm not saying you would have to do this, but if you offered a 3-day intensive, I might want to check in with the group 5 days, 10 days, a week, 2 weeks later. How are you doing? Have you had a chance to process any of this? Do you have any questions? If you'd like to get together and do, a lunch and learn to reconnect, just because that format is a little intense, goes with the name, intensive. Another format that has been used by a couple of groups is doing 3 days, but doing it not in a row. So this one group picked a Friday. So they did 3 Fridays in a row, and they did the first 3 or 4 skills, and then they did the next 3 or 4 skills, and then they finished up with the last of the skills on that day 3. So they did it in 3 days, but they spread it out over a course of 3 weeks or a month. So you get a little bit of time. You do the first 3 or 4 skills, and you have some time to practice those 3 or 4 skills between the first time you meet and then the second time you meet. And then the last way that we're looking at doing a course is doing it by series. So setting up series 1 and doing your first 4 and then having a week or 2 off. And then for people who are interested, doing the next 4 skills. So you're doing it by series so that individuals who maybe are not either capable or able to set aside 10 weeks, they can set aside 4 weeks. And then they're so enraptured by what it is you're facilitating that they're like, I got to do this. And then they'll do the next 4 weeks. And then you finish a course with the system stuff. So that would be another option. And I'm working with a facilitator to hopefully pilot that as a potential for her group that she's working with. So those are some of the options that we've found work for CIT and facilitating CIT. I don't know if there are others out there. Those are the only 4 that we've come across so far. And I don't want to put you on the spot, Charlie, but if you're willing to share how it is you set up your first course and where you got your participants and how that went for you in Conley, I would love for you to share that if you're willing to do so.
Sure, Jennifer. Our first experience was, I think, a good one. We did do a taste of CIT with some of the group of 5 that we had our initial experience with. These were individuals who were working with Conley on our Compassion Conference this fall. They wanted to see what the CIT was all about. So there were a couple from there. There were 3 from our own home church, St. Barnabas Presbyterian. They were interested. And so this was our first group of individuals. They were very compassionate and understanding that this was our first attempt at facilitating the course. And so they were quite willing to say, we'll be your guinea pigs, and they were really good. It was a good experience. I think when we look back, it was over the 10-week, it was the 10-week course, 2 hours, Monday evening. And there were a couple of sessions where one would not be able to show or another one wouldn't be able to show. But for the most part, we had good participation, good attendance. But the comment was 10 weeks seems to be a little bit difficult, you know, to set aside 10 weeks, same time each week for the course. So we came away with the feeling that what Jennifer expressed is maybe going to be better for us as we announce our next course, which will be in the fall. We haven't set the absolute dates yet. And I do want to mention something that I'm excited about that will involve a very specialized group of CIT students. But anyway, their recommendation was that it would be better to say have 3 workshops, or doing the first series of self-compassion, second series, compassion to others, and then the system stuff at the end. And so we were thinking most people are willing to take a Saturday, either 3 consecutive Saturdays, or like Jennifer said, maybe split it up. So that's something that we are batting around in our head. One of the things for us is we have because we are associated with Compassion at DFW, we have a distribution list of like 600 people. But I think it would be really good if we announced it, of being able to have a little more media or a little more marketing of it to make the public more aware that this is available. We don't want to be barraged with so many that we couldn't handle it anyway. And the idea for us is that we would really like to inspire enough participants that by the time they finish the program, they're going to want to go ahead and do the facilitators training, so that in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we'll have a whole cadre of facilitators that are passionate about this kind of compassion cultivation training. The special group that I am in the process of working with are the medical students, the UT Southwestern Medical Center medical students. I do some ethics facilitation with the medical students in all 4 levels of the medical school experience. And one of the things we would like to do and are pretty convinced of is that compassion does matter. And what most medical students and most people, medical staff, healthcare workers understand about compassion is, yes, we're all compassionate, but the true deep understanding of what compassion means and how to do that is not there. And there is a book out, maybe you all have heard about it, called Ergonomics. And I'm so excited about it till I bought it 2 days ago, and I'm almost finished, and it's about 300 pages long with 30 pages of references, but it is a very evidence-based proof, I think, that the bottom line is compassion does matter, and learning and cultivating that within the healthcare arena is extremely critical. So we're in the process of developing a research project, or research effort to do a pilot program at UT Southwestern this fall. And the program that we are going to commit to for that is CIT, not the others that are out there, which are all very good. But I think that there's benefits that I will argue that CIT has over the other two relatively comprehensive programs. So a little plug for CIT, but at the same time, our experience, Connolly and my experience, was really good, and we're excited about carrying this forward. We'd love to see it happen, all of this happen overnight, but it's not going to happen that way. So we'll take it a day at a time. Thanks, Jennifer, for giving me the opportunity to express my enthusiasm for the program.
No, thank you, Charlie. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, so I'm glad that you were A, comfortable doing it, and B, were able to share so much with us. I'm really excited to hear more about your project as well, too. And if there's anything, of course, that we can help from our end, you just need to let us know, and we'll be happy to help in any way we can.
And to that point, we have we're in the process of drafting up a job description for a research director, and are seeking funding for that position, and may bring that position on a part-time basis at least first. But this would be somebody, who could kind of coordinate and work with anyone doing research into CIT and its effects, and also do research on projects that we've got directly our hands in. So I'll keep you posted on that. I'll keep everyone posted on that.
Charlie, thank you for that. I think that this might be a place where you could put this information on the facilitator forum. And the idea of the evidence-based research, what you've done so far, would be really important. I'm a journalist and I write for integrative healthcare, digital and print magazines, and I'm always looking for this kind of information. I just finished Compassionate Healthcare and why compassion is the new language in healthcare. So this would be really, really great to publish. If you want me to publish it, I'm happy to do that. But I think that's a good place to put it in the forum, so we could start seeing what people are doing and then spread the word.
Sure, sounds great. Thank you, Nancy.
And I just wanted to add one thing to how to get it into your community. I like the idea, you said you did it via a conference, because a conference was going to be happening, and then you got the people from that. I like that idea of doing pre-conference workshops or part of. And then, I mean, in the community, I just did a school, but it's because I live in the community. So they already know me. I know people, they were either patients of mine or students of mine in my meditation center. And so, that's how I got in there. And that's pretty much in a community. Usually that's how you get in, right? You know somebody, and luckily you treated them and they got better or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
You didn't kill them or anything, and then they trust you. So yeah, that's how I got into it. And what I did when I went around my group, they were all teachers. I had 2 sessions of 40 teachers in each session. I went around seeing who they are, what they teach, etc. And one of the gentlemen said, "You're going to be doing my 4 11th grade classes next week." And I said, "What about this did you think would resonate with them?" And he said they all have pre-test anxiety, and the self-regulation piece will be really important for them. So that gave me a clue to how I'm going to structure my next session. So maybe, that's how it went for me anyway.
Super.
Thank you. The last thing on our agenda, and then we'll get to the parking lot, which was Charlie's question about the restructure, is a directory of curricular engagements. We've been talking about it, Michael and I have been talking about it, and it's one of those things that we want to get to it. We just haven't had the time to be able to do so. But the directory of curricular engagement activities would be something that if you are working with a specific population, so for example, Nancy, if you were going into the schools, or if somebody were going into the prisons to be able to work with a group of incarcerated individuals, then you could go to the directory and see some of the CEs that have been submitted for that particular population. And you could look at it and go, oh, okay, that would be a great idea. Or to have that sort of information or knowledge in the back of your mind, so that if you're working with a specific group and you get stumped, you have something that you can fall back on.
Yes, yes. Love that.
So we're working on it. We just have not had the ability to sit down and go, okay, so these are the first 10 we're going to start with, 1 for every skill for these different populations. So there's a lot of information to sift through in order to be able to get to the point where we've got a searchable directory where you could go incarcerated individuals, pop it in, or K to 12, pop it in, or college and university, pop it in, and things would populate for you. So we're working on it, and ideas for how to structure that would be really helpful, so that we've got some kind of framework as we're looking at CEs, and we're pulling CEs from all of the stuff that has been submitted from all the facilitator groups we've worked with in the past, that we've got somewhere to go and sort of how to sift through and sort that information. So if you have ideas about sorting that and being able to group it in some coherent, cohesive manner, please send me an email, and we'll be happy to add that to the list of things that will be helpful to the facilitators as moving forward through the process.
Just want to thank you all for the incredible amount of devotion and passion and work you put into this. It will and will pay off greatly, but I want you to know that it's really valuable work and greatly appreciated. And I know you have a million other things to do. So
I would like to just say, Jennifer, that and emphasize what you all are doing in this respect. A directory of the engagements would be beautiful. We in the interfaith community, we deal with people from all faith traditions, and although this is a very beautiful secular approach, which it has to be as foundational, yet we do find ourselves in environments where it would be good to have the engagements that would have the language of, let's say, a particular faith, be it Islam, Buddhist, Christian, Jewish. So I would love to see categories that would allow us to go and pull these things off the bookshelf, so to speak, and be able to plug into where those experiences are, the experiential stuff. So
love it. Maybe you could ask for volunteers. There's a lot of brilliant people over at Life University there.
Well, there are a lot of brilliant and wonderful people at Life, but there's also a lot of brilliant and wonderful people in this group. That the collective wisdom of some of the folks that have participated in CIT are I don't want to say more important, but are just as important. And Charlie, to your point, I just got an email from a facilitator in training who asked a very similar question about putting together a group of people to look at exactly what you said. They were looking at it from a specific religious, faith or faith tradition, but being able to put together things from multiple faith traditions so that you have that background and knowledge. Because even though I might be of one particular faith background or tradition, I might look at something else and go, oh, that does connect to my particular faith tradition. So, I've had conversations with friends who I am a practicing Catholic, who are not practicing Catholics, and they'll share something from their background, and I'm like, oh, well, we have something very similar. This is what it's called for us. So being able to have that knowledge even of the different faith traditions and how those things can link together would be helpful. So that might be something we can certainly. I've added it to my list. Growing, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not sure how much I appreciate this. I'm kidding. Kidding. All right.
So let me chat about the facilitator guide. Is that a good timing for that, Jennifer?
Yeah, I was just going to see if there's anything last minute comments about any of the other agenda items before we move to the parking lot, because I know that's a question that many folks have.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Anya.
I'm so sorry. Hold to bother, but could you just repeat the version, the options, if we divide a CIT into 3 parts into this series? So would it be 4 weeks, series 1, and with an open option if they want to continue? Or I'm not sure if I got what you proposed.
There are a couple of different options. So you could do it by series and do series 1 and do it over 4 weeks, 2 hours a week for 4 weeks. Or you could do series 1 in a 1-day workshop on a Saturday or a Friday, or any kind of a business day, whatever would work for you and your group. So and then you've got those as options. So if you did it as series, then you would do 3 workshops: series 1, series 2, series 3. If you did it over the course of 3 or 4 weeks, then you could spread it out and just do skills 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever that would look like. So it really depends on you. me personally, I would probably break it up by series. If I were going to do it over a course of 3 weeks, I'd probably break it up by series and focus on series 1 and do nothing but self-cultivation for that whole session. And then I would do another week of relating to others. So that would just be my personal preference, but you could do it, you could structure it in either fashion. It would depend on you and your group.
That would, how many hours would that be for one session in one series? Then if we cover it in 2 hours, you'd have like a whole day, a 6-hour series.
That'd be, yeah, it's usually about 8 hours per series. But what I would also suggest, just to build on what Jennifer said, is I would get creative. The goal, clearly the power is in people getting through the whole 10 skills, but be creative in how you do that. So it may be that you say, hey, I can come in, if you've got an hour, give me an hour. I'll come in and I'll just give a quick overview. If you can give me 2 hours, great. I'll do a quick overview and we'll do one activity. So, and it may be, as Jennifer was suggesting, it may be some of the skill 1 activities, the resourcing, tracking, grounding, which could be great. And then people walk away with some skills they can actually use, even if that's the only thing they get. Or you could say there's somebody, another group that right now, this guy is trying to sell it to his foundation. So he said, I want to do the empathy line. I think that's what'll really resonate with people. So he's going to do the empathy line. It doesn't have to be just skill 1, but he's being creative because he wants them to experience it. One last thing, which I might have mentioned last month, I can't remember, but there's a group of 2 facilitators here in Atlanta, and I'm going to work with them on this, but there's an organization that asked for some sensitivity training. They had heard about CIT, a group of them went through CIT, and then another part of the organization felt like they needed some sensitivity training. So they reached out to us, and we are going to go in there and do the first 3 to 4 skills, right? They can give us 2 half days, they said, and they're going to pay for it. And the facilitators will get paid and all that, but they're going to come in and they're going to do just the first 3 to 4 skills, because we feel like we can make that work for what they're trying to accomplish. But with the invitation then to be, well, if you found this powerful, we would like to also talk to you about doing another couple of half days next month or a couple months from now. And so again, just be creative. Don't feel, the idea is that we want people ultimately to accomplish all 10 skills, to do them in that order, but that doesn't mean you can't be creative with how you put it out there. And we certainly don't want to limit the exposure people get to the material by being kind of militant about, no, you have to sign up for all 10. And if you don't sign up for all 10, you can't get any of it. And that obviously is not what we're trying to accomplish, but maybe unclear in how we explain it to people.
Oh, I'm glad that you offered that. Thank you. That makes it much easier.
Is there a minimum and maximum recommended group size?
Yeah, we tend to like to suggest a minimum of 1 facilitator to 10 people. I mean, ideally you do 2 people, you have 2 facilitators always, but if you can't, then you do 1 to 10. So if you're going to have 20 people, then you'd need to have 2 facilitators and so on. So that's,
so you think 10 is the least that you can have in a group?
Oh, not least. No, not least. That's the most I would want to do with just 1 facilitator.
Oh, okay. No, I'm saying like,
Yeah.
if you have a group, is like 4 even enough? Does it, what is your feeling of like a critical mass for a group to make it dynamic enough for everybody?
If people can participate, then I think you can pull it off with 6 people.
Okay.
Again, if you only have 4 people and it's something that you want to be able to practice on, like I wouldn't suggest that as a sustainable way to move forward. But if it's like, I'm fresh out of facilitator training, I've got this information, I want to share it with people, I want to practice, I'm just going to gather 4 people together, or that's all I can gather right now, then do it. I would definitely.
I'm gathering people on a daily basis, just sprinkling my information all over Atlanta, okay?
I love it.
That's what we like to hear.
That's great. Well, before we run out of time, we can keep this conversation going and continue to share. I did notice while I was checking around, if you go into each of the individual forums, there is a button for each forum that says subscribe to notifications or something. So anyway, we'll get back to you on that. We'll continue this conversation though, but just for now, I wanted to share my screen real quickly, and to answer Charlie's question as succinctly as possible is we're pretty much done. And I just need to polish up a couple things, but then we're going to post it. But if you see, this is the new facilitator guide, and the way it's been organized is that it's a little hard to see. Let me maybe. If you look at the table of contents, you'll see that all of the information that is general to the whole program is in the beginning. So we have the guidelines, we have a standard CIT session, then we have instructions on the critical insight activities. We have instructions on reflective writing and mindful dialogues. We have instructions on contemplative practice scripts. And then we move into each of the different skills. If we scan down here pretty far, you know, the downside is then people don't tend to read the introductory information, which is really critical, but hopefully that won't be the case. But if we go down, let's grab one. Okay, let's see. Okay, whoops, going a little far, slow down, okay. I'll just give you an example. What we've done is, so here is impartiality and common humanity. If you go into impartiality and common humanity, all of the critical insight activities are signified by this little light bulb. Very creative, I know. And that's
Good.
So you've got your critical insight activities. So that's hi, who are you? And then you have common humanity stories, which is their next critical insight activity. And then the practice scripts are signified with this little person doing meditation. Again, very creative, I know. And then you have all your scripts. So what you'd be able to do is, and this one of course has multiple practices, so it's indicated, each one's indicated by a new icon, and then you print that, and here you are now with forgiveness and gratitude. So all of the individual, all of the critical insight activities and practices are within its own section. It's not the presentation notes, which are still separate, but that was going to get too bulky, and I think people have their own form that they want. We had gotten feedback from people. They had all sorts of different methods for doing their notes. So we didn't want to go there, but this is the way we've decided to do it. So
this is going to be sent to us now as an update, or we'll find it on the site as an updated manual. And then
well, I should clarify that Nancy and Lauren and Margarita are all in facilitator training now. So you're seeing this in real time each week as we do it. But for the people who are already facilitators or who are in a previous facilitator training, they've never seen it like this. So you guys have had the benefit of seeing that. For some reason, it looks like my Google shut down.
So I had downloaded the original one as a PDF.
If you did that from the website, then that's the old one.
So at some point, I'll be able to download the new one.
Yeah, probably in the next week or so. If you
That's right.
Go to.
You let us know, Michael, when we can go on and download it, please. Thank you.
Yes, I will. We will send out an email to everyone about that. And so if you just go to our course materials, it'll be listed right here under facilitator guide. If it chooses.
You have to log in.
I'm not logged in. You know, these systems. Okay, now I'm logged in. Yeah, so it'll be facilitator guide right there, and we'll indicate that it's updated, and we'll send out an email to everyone. So we're just gonna fine tune it, make sure that everything's edited right, and then we'll put it up there next week.
Thank you.
Okay, back to you, Jen. Anything, Jennifer?
Okay, anything else that we want to share? Final thoughts, comments, questions?
I have 2 questions. So the 1,000 participants that you had mentioned, Michael, when did the program start?
So the program started in 2015, but the issue with it was not the issue, but basically what it was is Brendan and I would walk into a room and we would start teaching. And there's a course at Life University called Compassion and Secular Ethics. It's a psychology course, and it's got a lab affiliated with it. And we also have a master's program there, and there's a compassion lab. And both of those labs would use CIT as the lab work. But the way it would work is we'd meet once a week for 2 hours. The students would come in, Brendan and I would walk in, we'd stand at the board, we'd talk about the received knowledge, we'd do some activities, and then we'd do a program, and then we'd do a practice, and then people would leave. And bye, Charlie.
Bye, Charlie.
And but
Hey,
nothing,
Charlie.
there was nothing written down. There was no PowerPoints. There was nothing. So we did that for about a year, and then we developed the learning outcomes, and then so it's been a kind of an iterative process. It's been probably 18 months since the manual was published, and we started having much more of a kind of controlled and systematic kind of process where everything is built in a scalable way. So that's been, so a lot of those people took it on campus, just in smaller groups through courses and all that kind of stuff. So it's been a while.
And then just one more question. When you're doing the overview presentation, or when you're in that setting, do you, or have you done it in a facilitator style? Or do you always do it in a, just sort of lecture education style?
It tends to be a little bit more lecture when we do it, but there's a lot of questions and stuff like that that get thrown in there. So at this point, that's kind of the way it's designed, is a little bit more frontal, just so people understand what it is. One of the things, we're talking to some people about helping us with marketing and just kind of getting it out there, and in a more general sense. And so once we kind of figure out what that looks like, we'll update people. So there will be a little bit, hopefully less of a learning curve that you have to help people get over before. And hopefully at some point people will be like, it'll be like going to a mindfulness class or going to a yoga class. Like, oh, there's a CIT class here, I want to go to that. So, and to Nancy's comment, right? Hopefully that'll be the payoff at some point.
Yay.
Okay, everyone. I think that's yeah. That brings us to time. I don't want to keep anyone any longer. And I don't know, Jennifer, any last words of wisdom before we sign off? And
No, can't think of it. See, well, because I'll get to see some of you in the next week as you're facilitating your next segment.
Right.
So I get to see many of you later this week.
Okay, wonderful, everyone. Thank you guys so much, and we look forward to next month and all the good work.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Hi, thank you.
Bye-bye.